Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Jenkins online meetup. I'm Liam Newman. I'm joined today by Mark Waite and Ullrich Hafner. We'll be talking about the static analysis plugin, the new next generation version of it for Jenkins. Before we get started, I have a couple of announcements. We'll be taking questions. If you have any, if you're following along at home, you can go to the IRC channel, the Jenkins, #Jenkins IRC channel, or also on the Gitter channel for Jenkins CI Jenkins. And I'll be keeping track of that and asking your questions as needed. Other announcements, the CFP for DevOps World Jenkins World has opened. Can go and submit your talks about Jenkins, similar to the one that you're going to hear today. If you're using Jenkins for cool stuff, just found things interesting that you've enjoyed doing, or have some big challenges that you saw with Jenkins, hop on over there and submit your talk ideas. Also coming up, there'll be a bunch of activities around FOSDEM at the beginning of February. Just before FOSDEM, we'll be doing some workshops in Brussels. One of them will be a continuous deployment with Jenkins X, Kubernetes, and Friends. There'll be two of those, actually, one at 9 a.m. and one at 1 p.m. on the 1st of February. Mark and I will be competing with that one to talk about Jenkins pipeline fundamentals. These are two really interesting courses. If you've been using pipeline for a while, aren't familiar with everything, this is a great place to start. And let's see what else. I think that's everything beforehand. So just to say again, we've got we'll be monitoring the Gitter and IRC channels for any questions. And Uli, take it away.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sharing here. There we go.
Okay, I'll share my screen now.
Great.
Let's see. Everything is visible there. So I would like to start with some slides so that everybody gets an overview of my plugins, and then I'll show you the plugins in detail with a demo. And then we can have some questions, or you can have the questions in the middle of the talk. Let's see and start. So the static analysis plugins, a typical use case of them is, I think, everybody using. So you have a normal job in Jenkins where you check out your code, and you compile the code and test the code and deploy the code. And if you do this without my plugins, you normally use a console log to visualize the results of your build. And then you see the test results in the JUnit view, for instance. When my plugins came into play, what they are doing, they take the console log and replace the console log with something nice and beautiful, like the test results. So I'm taking the results of the console log, parse them with some parsers, and then present the results in a detailed view. So this is one aspect of my plugin, and we can generalize this aspect in basically I don't only scan the console log, I can scan every tool you would like to know. So you can scan check style warnings, you can scan spot bugs results, JSLint, every static analysis tool you would like to scan, you can scan with my tool now. Actually, we have now almost 100 tools supported. Actually, most tools have been supported by some volunteers. So it's always good if you have a new tool which you would like to have support for, please provide a pull request and I will integrate it into this tool. So the analysis suite, the old system consists of about 10 or 12 plugins, which basically provided results for Android, check style, spot bugs, warnings, PMD, and so on. They have been provided by individual plugins. So one thing for users, this was a little bit difficult. And for me as a developer of these tools, it was also a little bit complicated. So one thing I decided, we should replace these all plugins with one single plugin. And the idea was to use the warnings plugin as a result, but we discussed it in San Francisco and the Jenkins world that it would be even better if we drop this plugin at all and write a completely new plugin. And this plugin now is called Warnings Next Generation. This has the advantage that I'm using a new plugin. I can drop all these dependencies I don't need anymore, and I don't need to look for backward compatibility. So the new plugin now consists of these new parsers, which are support almost 100 different tools. So that's the background for the plugin. And what I would like to show you are now some features of the new plugins. And these features, I think, are best shown on a real instance. So I will show you it on one of my on a local Jenkins instance. So this is a local Jenkins I'm using for my tests. If you would like to see the results of the plugins on your Jenkins instance, or you see how you can also visit our continuous integration server. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of that. Our Jenkins CI server for our plugins is also now using the new warnings plugin.
Oh, so you're talking about the CIJenkins.io. That's the one that we use for testing all the plugins when we go on when we're on GitHub. You see the results on there, and okay.
So everybody can.
Could you make that a little larger?
Okay.
Oh. Yep, one back from that. There's only there we go. That's fine. That'd be great. Yeah.
I think it's better. So
yeah, otherwise, there's only so much size you can get out of that. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, and I need to make it here as well. So. Okay, so if you use my static analysis plugins, you can use them basically with every type of project in Jenkins. So you can have it with pipelines, with Maven project, with freestyle projects, with declarative pipelines, and so on. I think I've added support for every type of plugin. So in order to see the results of the plugins, you need, for instance, to go to a job and click on the job. And if you open the job, you see the first results of my plugins. On the left side, you see the links to the results. So you see the Build Now button, and now you see Java warnings, error-prone warnings, check style warnings. These are the warnings you need to configure in your build. So I'm building with Java. So there are a lot of tools available that can be rendered with my plugins. If you're using check style or JavaScript, you get only one link, for instance, with your results. So from here, you can navigate to the results of the latest build. And what you also see on the top level page of a job, you see the trend charts. So you see how your warnings behave over the builds. So here you see the warnings increased a lot, and yes, sometimes I have some more time to make some clean code, then I reduce the warnings. So you can see here a trend of all these tools that are configured in your system. This is one of the new things. The trend charts I'm using here are generated on the client side using JavaScript libraries. And this is the test result trend. This is still the old type of charts. These are generated on the Jenkins master. So I think having them on the client side is a little bit better because you have better frameworks to use. And what I'm going to add in future releases is you can have some kind of configuration of the charts locally. So you don't need to talk to the server anymore. You can set the range, etc., the colors, what else on the client side. And that will be stored on your browser, and you don't need a connection to the server for this. So these are the trends, and the most important thing for me when I'm looking at a project is the results of a single build. So I navigate to build, and here we have the page to see the result of a build. And here you see the individual results. So we have the test results, and now here for every tool I'm having, you see one of these boxes where you see an overview of the warnings of the special tool. So for instance, error prone, we have 15 warnings, check style 1 warning, and so on. So you see for every tool you get one of these boxes if you want. What you can also have, this is here for Java, you can also have a box or a result that is a combination of multiple tools here for Java and for Java doc, because I think these warnings are quite similar, so I combined them into one result. So on this page you have links to the results. So I'll follow the link a little bit in a moment. So what we also see, we have some kind of icons here. So here we have a quality gate. That means this build is unstable. This is a feature of the plugin which I already had in the old version. That means you can create quality gates for a build and say, okay, if the number of new warnings is greater than 5, then the build should be unstable. Or if the number of total warnings is greater than 200, then the build should be unstable or should be failed. This is something you can configure how you like it. If you have such a quality gate, you also see the reference build. That means if you compute new warnings, you must say new to what, and what is the number of the build I'm using. So here, for instance, I have a reference build that number 27, and here's a reference build number 30. So the plugin is capable of deciding which is the best reference build and computes the new warnings based on these reference builds. The details about choosing a reference build are quite complicated, so I'll drop that for a moment. So if you have later some questions, I can go into more detail on how this reference build is computed. So what we also have is this small icon here with an info or an error. So normally you look into the console log every time you want to see something important for a plugin. I integrated it now into the plugin, so you see every console log messages from my plugin are shown on an individual screen. So you don't need to go to the console log and scan for error prone. You just have the warnings here, what's going on and what happened. So these are the information things, sorry. And if you want to see the results, you need to click the main link here, and then you are navigated to the results of the analysis. And here we have the error-prone compiler, which shows the warnings which are in my build now. These results are split into 3 parts. On the first part, we have an overview where we have a kind of diagram which shows the new outstanding and fixed warnings. So here it's a little bit boring. We have only old warnings which have been in the previous build as well. But if you have new warnings, I think I have it for check style. Yeah, here you see it's red. That means in the previous build we had no warning, and now in this build we have 1 new warning. You can also navigate to the severities. That means we have severity of high warnings, normal warnings, low, and error warnings. So here we only have one issue. So severity distribution does not make much sense, but typically you have a lot of different severities.
So let me jump in here. So you can choose a reference build, right, on which to base these. Can we choose, for instance, to have like the last stable master build be the reference for PR for a different branch, or is it only within that one branch?
No, this is a feature I added in this release that you can choose. Actually, not. I'm choosing not from branches. I'm choosing from jobs.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, interchangeable in my world, but I know you're saying so you can choose a different job to be the reference.
Yes, exactly. That means if you have a master build, and then you can say, okay, let's pick the last successful master build as reference, and then if you have a pull request, you're building the delta from the current build, from the pull request build with the results from the master build. This is, I think, a great achievement. So you can see for each pull request what actually changed.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Actually, that's a great feature.
It sounds simple, but if you look at it a little bit more in detail, you will see it's not so simple, because the problem is, and that is not yet implemented, and I'm not sure if it's doable at all. So if we have builds on the master, they contain a lot of subsequent commits. So not for every commit you get a build. And if someone creates a pull request, they get off from a Git history, and they may pick one commit where they start from, which is not built by Jenkins in a standalone version. So sometimes you will get some differences.
Sure.
So
yeah, that graph computation problem, I'm very impressed, Uli, that you've worked through that. That's very, very nice. Well done.
Yeah. This is, by the way, one thing I would like to have a student for working on it. If we should get this even better to compute something that we build 2 times. So we build with a commit branch point, and then we build with a pull request, a final pull request, and then compute the delta. That means we need 2 builds, but if we actually do these 2 builds, we will get results which are correct. And currently, the results are correct the most time, but not every time. So maybe that is also interesting. I'm switching to the configuration. So we see how we can choose the reference build. So it's a little bit scrolling because it's here this is a freestyle configuration of the same job. So if you configure your job, there is this section called reference analysis. And here you can select the reference job. So here you can select one of these jobs where your master is building, and the plugin chooses the best result of this master job. And the best result depends. So I have 2 options to select the best result. So you can, for instance, you can ignore failed builds and look only on successful builds. And you also can select if the master build should take the previous build from the master, or the previous build that has been in status of successful. So these are some options you can use to select the reference build. So, okay, back to the results. Let's go to error prone, because there are a little bit more warnings. So here we have some charts. The history is also visible here. I'm using Bootstrap to visualize the results. That means I now have the capability to use some rendering, which is different if your screen is larger or screen is of your mobile phone. The support is there, but I have not yet the time to implement something. So currently everybody sees the same page, if it's on a big screen or a small screen. But what I'm going to add is if you have a really large screen, as I'm normally using, maybe we can have 3 of them, or the history is larger than the overview. This is something which is called responsive design, which still needs to be implemented. So this is also something someone else can provide to me, so as a pull request. So
speaking of which, actually, so just a side note here, a bunch of this work was actually done by in concert with students, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I had a bachelor thesis, which we called a little bit evaluating some UI frameworks, and we wanted to evaluate them on a real project. So we chose Jenkins, or my Jenkins plugins, and we tried to replace the old user interface, which is it's quite old school, let's say, in Jenkins, with something new. And a student replaced and added these detail views to the plugins.
That's really cool. You know, Oleg Neneshev and a number of other people are working on doing Google Summer of Code. I'm wondering if you have any things that you're talking about. I want to add this. I want to add that. That would be a great opportunity to maybe submit a project to that and see if someone's interested in doing that. I'm not sure that you have the time necessarily to be a mentor on it, but maybe we can figure something out.
Yeah, that's on my to-do list. I need to head on here. Yeah.
Cool.
And Uli, if maybe not right now, but I would love to hear any insights you have, if we've got time at the end of the presentation, about your experience developing inside the Jenkins infrastructure with something that to me looks quite different than how Jenkins usually does UI components. So that's not really the warnings plugin per se, I guess, but I'm fascinated by what you've done. It's really an amazing piece of work.
Yeah, I think we will have some time later on, so maybe we can have it at the end.
That'd be great.
Okay. So these are just eye candy, let's say, and the real interesting results for me as an architect are the details. And so we have here, if you have a lot of issues, you can navigate into the packages or types or files, so you can sort out the interesting ones. And for instance, I would like to see these issues, then I can navigate here, and you see here at the top, I'm navigating into this subfolder, let's say, and then you see only the details of these issues. These tabs that are visualized are generated dynamically. So if you have no packages or everything is in the same package, you don't see a package tab, and so on. Let's go back to see everything. What I'm also considering is to replace this thing here to a detail tab here at the top, but I'm not sure if that makes sense now. So what I also use, we use here a new table, a JavaScript table, which makes sense mostly here for the issues. Here are all these issues I have found in my build. This table, which is something new, you can search for something. What I search for characters, and then you see something. And this is something I did not program at all. It's just a JavaScript library I took and said, okay, let's apply it to Jenkins, and it worked out of the box. So what we have, sorting and things like that, that works just out of the box without any great programming.
Which library was that?
It's data tables, jQuery data tables. And or should have said it normally works out of the box. In Jenkins, it's not so easy because Jenkins uses a lot of old JavaScript libraries which are hard coded and can't be replaced. So the hard work was to get this thing working with Jenkins.
To put it in a isolated enough frame that it could be the modern view. Nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have pagination. You can have here 1 or 2 results, or you can show everything in one page. This is everything supported by this data table view. So yeah, nothing to do for what I need to do. Currently, the pagination is rendered on the client side. This works well for my projects. I don't have so much warnings, but I already had some bug reports where people have 10,000s of warnings. And then we should implement pagination on the server side. That means we shouldn't read every 10,000 issues at once. So, but that still needs to be done. Maybe a side note for this screen here, the issues screen is rendered lazily. That means if you load the page, the table of issues is empty. And then we use Ajax to get back all these issues that are shown here. And this needs to be split if you have a lot of issues in your system. So every element here is clickable, so you can show all issues in this package. So you see only the issues in this package, and you can only select the type and so on. What you also see is you can open some details for each issue. And the details you see are a little bit depend on the tool. So here we have error prone. That means you have typically in the console log just one message. And what I also added, you have a link where you can directly go to the website of error prone. And then you see some more details about the problem. These details, which are shown below the warnings, these are, let's say, hard-coded. That means for these 100 tools I have, you need to provide the information for each tool by programming. So by programming in error prone, it was quite easy. It's just a link, which is on the console I can show. For findbugs, checkstyle, and PMD, I'm using some descriptions from the projects. And for all other tools, you don't have anything. So if you have a tool that has a lot of descriptions on a web page, feel free to create a pull request so we can include these information also here in Jenkins. So, okay, we have aggregation about types, files. You see the issues and what we also have. And this is as well a student work. One of my students had a bachelor thesis about integrating the Git log or Git blame with the warnings. That means for each warning, you see who is the actual committer or author, or how do you call it? So we make, and this works only for Git. If the project is associated with a Git project, we have a warning. And for each warning, we can compute the author who is and the commit of these warnings. This helps, I think, to reduce the number of warnings quite fast. And if someone detects his name here, so you can disable it because it's some kind of security and maybe personal information which is printed here. So if you don't like it, just disable it. The last thing I added yesterday. This is also not a work by a student, but a work of a volunteer. You can also navigate to the warning itself. That means we have the source code is also visible where this warning occurred. And this display or this view is also new. And this view also uses a JavaScript library, Prism.js. And now we have syntax highlighting for every language, not only Java. I think it's over 100 languages are supported now. And you have a highlighting of the warning here. And you can also see, okay, the documentation here is not quite impressive because it's just a link to error prone. But let's say I'll navigate to something else. So we see some bit. Okay, here we have wrong class loader. So then you see the documentation, which is part of a PMD, for instance. So here I'm using the PMD project documentation and show you the details about this warning. So this view is also new. And yeah, I think this is, or these are all the information of these details view. One thing which might be interesting for others. I can't click on REST API. Here is it. If you are interested in the warnings, maybe because you want to write mails to somebody or you want to extract them, you can create with the REST API a list of all issues. Means you have for every issue, here we have 2 issues, you have the possibility to extract everything to REST API. And this is something what I'm using with a student currently. He is writing an application who is combining the issues or the warnings with the Git information about files. So what we are interested, we want to see if someone has a warning in a file, we want to see what is this for a file, is how many commits has this file or how many authors worked on this file. So some warnings or the same warning may be quite different if there are 100 people working on the same file, or if you have a warning in a file which is edited just by a single person, it doesn't really care if there's a warning. So these are information I'm currently trying to acquire with a new master thesis.
Okay, so this REST API exists already, or
yeah.
Okay.
The REST API where you see the information of the issues, that is already existing. The combination with Git is not existing yet, so this is work in progress. So we are still writing a separate application, which is reading Jenkins data and reading Git data and combining the result. And if the master thesis is ready to go live, then we need to pull it back into the Jenkins plugin, but this will take some time.
Interesting, yeah.
So Uli, it looks like what you've shown is many of them are freestyle. Is this also available in pipeline? Can I use it in pipeline jobs? And what's the feeling? How does it work?
What I don't understand what you mean with feeling.
Sorry, how do I integrate this into my pipeline jobs?
Okay, so if you want a pipeline, sorry, here is a pipeline. Sorry, I already opened. So
you anticipated the question. Excellent.
Yeah,
knew that was coming.
It's a little bit small. I don't. It's not. This is one thing one should change here. You can't make it bigger. So
can you copy that out into an editor just so we can take a look at it a little larger?
maybe one moment, I'll show in presentation. So,
awesome. Hey, already have it. Cool.
Okay, this is the Jenkins file we are using to produce the builds on Jenkins CI. No, ci.jenkins.io. So our build of my plugins, and you have this command. Here we have. Oh no, what did I do? Sorry. Record issues is the command of basically the step, or actually it's a freestyle a post step publisher, and it is available in the step as well. And then you have some flags, and basically we have 20 different flags because the plugin is getting complex and even complexer. But the main interesting thing is you need to say, okay, which tool I want to parse. So here we have a symbol, and for each of the tools I have, you must select the corresponding symbol. So if you want to pass the Maven console log, you need the tool console log. If you say you want to see the Java warnings of the Java compiler, you need that. You can put multiple tools, then you need here the tools. If you want one tool, you take this step. And you also sometimes, it depends a little bit on your configuration, need to provide the encoding of the source files, because the source files are visualized afterwards. You need to provide the encoding of the report files. There are a lot of parameters you can use. But the new thing is that we, in the old plugins, you had something like find bugs, etc. This is now replaced with a single step. And the thing which is variable is the tool which you give here. For instance, you say, okay, this is check style with a pattern, target check style. And even the open task scanner, it's a little bit more complicated. You can say, okay, which files I want to scan for to-dos. I scan for Java files. I don't want to scan in the target folder. And fix me is a high priority warning, and then to-do is a normal warning. So you basically have the same functionality in pipelines as you have in freestyle jobs.
That looks beautiful. Now, do I can it also work in the pipeline syntax UI that generates these things for me?
Mm-hmm. So we have one moment. So here we have this thing. Oh no, clicked on the wrong. Here we have pipeline syntax.
And it's more than enough if you just tell me yes. You don't have to even show the demo. You know it works in pipeline syntax. That's brilliant, because now I have an easy way to generate script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it works, but there seem to be some problems. I think here I have it. Yeah. Because what I think nobody else ever had done before, to have a list of about 100 elements. And
oh no, that's been done.
Yeah,
it's been more than that, and I'm sure that it was an issue there too. Just there's only so much.
The different thing in my thing is that the UI here. So let's say my open task scanner. Here, it's a different UI.
Okay.
It's broken. So
for each one.
Let's say find bugs. It's a little bit easier because it has just one checkbox. No. Okay, you see, it's sometimes it's broken, and I think the problem is that Jenkins renders these things somehow strangely, and it takes every sub diffs, and it's a little bit too complex. So,
you know, Jesse was actually Jesse Glick is on Gitter talking about this, and he actually commented about there's a bug for the editor window resizing. Already, of course.
Okay.
So any help people want to hop in on that, I'll include that in some of the links that we do after this. But that's also what's interesting to see. I mean, from a Jenkins developer's perspective, looking at this, I'm just fascinated that the way that you're sort of pushing the envelope with this in some ways, and showing what can be done with Jenkins, and how you make actually kind of these modern UIs, even under some of the older spaces here. And then of course you run into the limits of what's possible, and you have bugs like this. I'm sure any second now Jesse will be posting on the Gitter channel what the bug is for the thing you just mentioned, because it's the kind of thing that somebody's tried to do it before, right?
So okay, we were at pipeline. So this is the simple step. If you are writing a pipeline, we have the same thing you can use in, I hope it's not so moment. If you have a declarative pipeline, it works as well. So you can use the same command. It is pretty easy. And I also have, and this is what I wanted to show here. Sorry, it's too many tabs. Okay, I think here we were. If you have a pipeline and want to configure it, and some people have different ideas on, this is the wrong tab. Okay, doesn't matter. You can split this command, the record command, into two commands where you can create issues and then publish issues. So you can, if you're working in parallel, you can even split this step into two steps to have some special requirements as list.
Actually, and there was one other question, and I actually was going to ask this. And, can you configure what the base, the reference build is from inside pipeline?
Yes, every parameter you can choose from freestyle builds. You can also choose in pipelines.
Awesome, great.
It is something you get out of the box. So I did not do anything for it. So I just provided a publisher which works for freestyle builds, and I just need to implement one interface, and then everything is working out of box for pipelines.
Right on. Anyways.
And maybe prepare this as a slide. Let's jump into it. What you've seen now is this pipeline support the simple mode, where you have the scanning for warnings and the publishing are two different things. But if you use this record issues command, you get everything in one place. And some projects want to use an advanced mode. That means you can scan in different parallel steps, and you want to publish only one report, and you want to compile for Ubuntu and compile for other Linux systems, and then you want only a single report, you can have it as well. This works only in scripted pipelines, but some people prefer to use it in that way. So this is possible as well. Okay, so basically, so let's jump back to.
So the way that works, so that then what you have is you have one step that does a bunch of, like you have a bunch of scan steps, and then a publish at the end that says, okay, now publish them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I think it's the main features you've seen now. So some small things maybe to show. What I've included in the new release is something which was part of the analysis collector plugin in the previous releases. You have on the dashboard view, you see for each job the number of warnings, and you can see them by icon or you can see them by text. So this is a thing which can be configured. So this is, I think, helpful if you have a large set of projects and want to see which projects have warnings and which have no warnings at all. So
Uli, I don't recognize this particular dashboard view. This is a standard part? I had not seen this before. I think it's a beautiful piece of work. How do I get there?
It's a plugin.
Okay.
Everything. Yeah, the dashboard view I'm using very often in projects which contains several types. So you see the tests, the analysis, everything is aggregated. And the thing is dashboard view plugin, which you
Thank
need.
you.
So I think I have support for the token macro if you need that. So some small things are in the plugins you actually don't see. They are just there. I think one thing. Let's see, what have I written here? Okay, one thing. I talked. The plugin already supports 100 different tools. If your tool is not supported, you have two ways to support it. One way is to write a new plugin and provide a Java parser for this tool. It should be quite simple. And it's even simpler if you have a simple format. You can define a parser on the user interface. So I have in the Jenkins system configuration, you can define new parsers where you have to define a name and an ID. And then you have a regular expression, some kind of Groovy script, and then you can parse, for instance, this is an example log. If you have some old language which is not supported by Jenkins so far, you can write your own parser and include it afterwards in my steps. So this is also not new. It was part of the warnings plugin, and I also integrated into the new warnings plugin. So I think, these are most of the interesting features. So maybe it would make sense to have some questions.
Well, it's funny to have this thing where we have questions at the end. We've been asking them all the way through, so I mean,
okay.
As they've come up.
Uli, I do have one. So
Okay.
I was a longtime user of the warnings plugin before Next Generation came out. And as far as I can tell, it seems like I can coexist the old warnings plugin and the new, and I can make a transition at whatever pace I choose to. Are there any things that I should be watching for as a warnings plugin user as I move to warnings Next Generation?
Actually, I programmed it that way that they can coexist. So you can have in one job the results of the warnings plugin and the results of the warnings Next Generation plugin. So you always will see the old results. I think it was necessary because it takes a lot of time to write a migration of the old data, and I did not find the time to do that. So it's still possible to use both things. It's one thing or one problem we have in Jenkins is that we have the problem of symbols with the same name. And I think we already had this problem in the PMD plugin, and I think the Android lint plugin, they use the same symbol on the step. So then the parser of the declarative pipelines don't work anymore. So if you continue to use the Android lint plugin and my plugin all together and in parallel, it's a little bit complicated because you sometimes get problems. But these are not problems because of my plugins. These are problems because of the underlying architecture.
All right, so some of the old plugins may not make it easy to coexist. I know I didn't encounter any problems personally, but it sounds like you found some sort of niche cases or corner cases where a prior plugin and the new plugin, they have some conflict that a user or an administrator may detect.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, is there anything that we should be aware of here with regard to how this interacts with Blue Ocean? is it available in Blue Ocean at all, or is that a separate topic?
Yeah, I think this is a separate topic. When I started writing the new extensions, I wanted to do it with Blue Ocean. But actually, I ask a lot of times in the mailing list if they are ready for extension, but I think they are still not ready for extension. So there is yeah, I think they wanted to make something that is extendable, but it's not yet finished. And I'm not sure if it's feasible at all. So Blue Ocean makes a total different model. So and I wanted to wait, but somehow, now it was, I think it's 2 years ago when they contacted me if we can make something, and actually it didn't work out. So we decided to make it with the old Jelly style and just use some new libraries, which is simple for the plugin developer.
And
if you have,
on those new libraries that you're using, any guidance that you can give or places you could give pointers to people if others wanted to experiment with the new libraries you're using in the context of Jelly?
Yeah, I think one or a good way to integrate these new libraries would be to provide some kind of new user interface plugin which provides these libraries. Currently, everything is coded into my plugin. So if you want to use these libraries, you either need to include it in your plugin, or you can't use it from my plugin. So this is a little bit complicated, and I think this is where the work really starts. So if you want to, for instance, if you want to use Bootstrap 4, which I'm using, we actually need to provide a plugin which is called Bootstrap 4, and then another plugin can use it. So, but this has to be done. So I have not found the time to do this in my plugins.
The work you've done is absolutely awe-inspiring. I'm so impressed. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really, what's interesting to me about this is the level of, like, this plugin is really great and does all this great stuff, and that's, it's a whole next generation of this work, and yet at the same time, like, we could have a whole nother online meetup just about the work that you did to add some of these technologies that you're using in there. We could do just that on its own too.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd be interested in, like, looking at what your thoughts are for some of these other things that you would want to do in terms of splitting out and making this available to other plugins.
Yeah, even the trend charts, for instance, these are hard-coded in my plugin, but it would be, I think, really useful if we have a trend chart plugin, which is configurable using some kind of API, where you can create these nice charts, and these just work out of the box. You have a configuration on the client side, etc. This is nothing which should be part of my plugin. It should be part of a greater plugin. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
there are client programmers available. Feel free to join.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, I think that's almost our time, and also what we have to work on, have to talk about for the day. I will include links to a bunch of the stuff that we talked about, and hopefully the slides as well, in the description of the video. And Ullrich, thanks so much for being here and presenting this. It's been really, really great.
Yeah, see you next.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Ullrich. We'll see you.
Bye, Mark.